We do not need any help in the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, we are glad to hear this, sir.
Yeah, same here.
We do need help in the Strait of Hormuz.
But you just said you did not.
We did not until you said you wouldn't.
Also, you did not ask us when you did, and you are asking us now that you don't?
German is so confusing. Anyway, I changed my mind. The help is on the way very strongly.
What?
Is the help in the room avec nous right now?
Very cute. So this is how you treat us after we spent all those years protecting you because you're so stupid and weak? Hormuz is a simple problem that can be solved very safely.
So only a totally stupid country would not be able to solve it alone. Huh?
Exactly. Oh, I see what you did there. Very clever. Hey, Pete, how much help are we going to need to take Greenland?
Puppet Somewhere in the bowels of a city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Votes
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Coming up on today's edition, Dr. Monique Yohanon, Obamacare turned 16. Paul Jacobs and Food for the Poor. John Aiello and Heaven, How We Get There. Patrice Onwuka, Equal Pay Day. And Billy Holloway talks angels and demons. Sketch comedy from the puppet regime, Babylon Bee, and Nick Peterson, and Elevation Worship in the Spotlight. And now from Times Square, where even the pizza rats hanging outside the slice joints know you've got to protect the vote, here's the Well, welcome in. Glad you're with us. Big weekend. It's the weekend that leads into Holy Week, which if you're familiar with this show, and we are now on 2 wonderful television networks. Thank you, Salem News Channel. Thank you, BizTV. Thank you for all of the OTT networks that take us. Pluto, Amazon Prime, the new Roku channel, if you're watching us on the Roku TV set now. Obviously, Vizio, Samsung Plus, Apple TV, the accolades could go on and on. But we're in more than 100 million American households as I live and breathe talking to you this minute. Thank you for letting us in. And on top of that, we got about 419 radio affiliates that are hearing the words coming out of my mouth. And on top of that, there's about 150 different markets where there's this thing that I'm talking about right now going out over the air in old-fashioned broadcast television. So over the air, over the top, radio, digital, streaming, podcasts, TV here, TV there. We're everywhere. Thank you for letting us be with you. That's the most important place that we could be. And next week, I took all that long trail to say this. Next week, Holy Week, we will continue the tradition of a very special thing that we've done here for the last 10 years. And I hope that you will join us. It is a remarkable presentation of what I think is one of the most important stories ever told. And we'll get into it. John Aiello will be here to talk about that a little bit later because we want you to enjoy a movie night with your family. We're going to give you the movie, give you a trailer, give you some discussion questions about it. Just go to thatkevinshow.com/heaven, thatkevinshow.com/heaven and get your watch kit. And then join us next week during Holy Week as the festivities will commence. Also want to say thank you to those of you that are helping us with the effort to feed children with food for the poor. We are less than 100 kids away from hitting our goal of 720, and I would love this weekend, friend, to just pop us right over the top. It costs $75 to give one child 2 meals a day for the whole year next year and all the clean water they can drink for the rest of their life. It's a really remarkable program. 855-907-4673. But I want to go back to what Mr. Voice Guy Dave said here a second ago. The pizza rats in Times Square seem to have a better grasp of democracy than our senators, our U.S. senators. And that saddens me, because there's a slight majority of U.S. senators that are actually in favor of what I'm about to tell you. But if I read one more newspaper editorial or commentary piece about what an arduous task it is to get the Save America Act passed, if I hear one more lofty Washington condescending voice speaking to the cameras saying, we're working for unity and we will have to come to an agreement and all the rest of this. Excuse me, you were sent there to do a job. I don't really care how hard you think that job is. I will guarantee you one thing. We're celebrating America 250 this year. Going to do a big broadcast from Times Square. I'm looking forward to it. I will tell you, George Washington and Alexander Hamilton and all those guys that traunched through Trenton and the icy Valley Forge crossing and all the stuff that they did, frostbite on the nubs of their feet because they didn't have shoes and socks. That, my friend, was hard. What you're doing, trying to come up with a plan to pass the Save America Act, is not difficult. You're not hungry. You're not starving. You're not freezing to death. You're just sitting on your fat backsides in Washington trying to figure out how to not save face with some people while trying to do the right thing because you convinced the voters that you would to begin with. And that is done. We are done with that. I'm talking to the 100 people that sit in the United States Senate. You will not be allowed from this microphone or from the people that listen and follow me to be allowed to forget what you do with the Save America Act. It's the most important thing we have on our radar screen for 2026. End of sentence. Iran's not more important. Interest rates aren't more important. The economy's not more important. Nothing is more important than getting the Save America Act passed. Now you're sitting there going, Kev, you seem very perplexed this morning. Why are you so vexed? Maybe you need another sip of coffee. No, I don't need another sip of coffee. You know what I need? I need Senator Thune to get this law signed. I need him to get a version of it passed. I need it to go to reconciliation. I need him to do whatever it takes to do it, because there is no more important issue that we face. This is what Donald Trump is completely right about. There is nothing more important than getting voter integrity ensured. And if you're sitting back on your fat backside, sitting there going, well, it's just something we could kick down the road and take up again later. No, you can't. Because if you don't get this passed, the next election cycle and the one after that and the one after that, where you will have disillusioned all of the patriots that you've told you're gonna make election integrity a solid priority, you're going to disappoint all of them. They're going to stay home. You're going to lose your majority. And when you lose your majority, you're never going to get voter integrity back. When you lose the majority, and if you lose the White House, Republicans, listen to me. If you lose your majority and you lose the White House, you are going down in flames for a generation. Because the other side doesn't care how they count the ballots. Now look, you've got some time. You've got some cover by the Supreme Court. They're probably going to decide that you can't allow ballots to just come in endlessly after Election Day. That's a very good step in the right direction. But the most important step in the right direction, Senator Thune, is to have a law that says when you register to vote, you demonstrate your ability to prove that you're a citizen. And then when you go to vote, to cast your vote, you show them your ID so that they know who you are. If you're already registered and you've proven that you're a citizen, you're not going to have an issue. You're not going to be knocked off anything. Chuck Schumer's been lying about that. But all the Save America Act does is say, if you register to vote, you just need to prove to us that you're a citizen. That's a passport. That's a birth certificate. That's any number of things that will hold up in court under law that proves that you're a citizen of the country. That's all it is. Just prove to us that you're an American in order to vote. And then when you go to vote, you take your little ID with you and you say, see, that's really me. I do this anyway when I go to vote in my precinct, and they get all irritated because I live in a really blue area. They get all irritated. Well, we don't want to know that. Well, you should. It's your country. But friends, honest elections are the only future for America. We won't get anything fixed for the long term if we still are pussyfooting around with this thing. And Senator Thune, I'm saying this as kindly as I can. You've had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 suggestions come your way about how to get this done. I don't care which one you pick. Just get it done. You owe that to the people that you serve. We're your boss. Kevin McCullough coming right back. Man, do we have a show for you. It's going to be a great one. Don't go anywhere.
Now, back to that Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. All things related at that website. Never behind a paywall. Always available to you. The podcast, the column, the TV show, and the radio. It's all there. Same place, same time. Even all my socials are there. So come and spend some time with us offline. Different days of the week, we talk about some different practical kind of life-oriented topics. And Wednesdays is usually the day we drill down on health and wellness and nutrition and fitness and just how to have a better life in general. And we talk to a lot of different experts on a lot of different areas. I'm very glad to welcome back Dr. Monique Yohanon. Private practice for years, also working hard on public policy, specializes in aging and some of the things that seniors face. And so we're always glad to have her with us. Dr. Yohanon, it is good to have you back. I think I called you Moynihan or Mohanan probably 5 or 6 times the last time we spoke. I'm going to try not to do that today. But thank you for being here. We passed a very interesting anniversary this week, the 16th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act, and your thoughts on that milestone.
Is there a reverse for milestone? Feels to me like it has a positive connotation. And I think a lot about what Nancy Pelosi said.
Can we say the commemoration of?
Yes, that is such a better word.
Funeral for,
the funeral for common sense in a lot of this, I would say. So, when Nancy Pelosi said we need to pass the law to find out what's in it, well, they didn't know what was in it. So when you look at the 16th anniversary, what's it achieved? Like, what's its legacy? We have double the rates of premiums. You can thank Obamacare for that. We have double the deductibles. You can thank Obamacare for that. And compare that to the CPI over the same time, it's double that. So 50% increase in the CPI, 100% increase in premiums, 100% increase in deductibles. For now, they promised essential health benefits. They said everybody has to buy these really comprehensive plans. More than half of people never even meet their deductibles because the deductibles are so high. That is absolutely the legacy of Obamacare, and it's shameful.
Well, that is, and the high deductibles are because they got to figure out some way to pay for everything that they promised. And this is largely a very common problem across all of public policy. It doesn't really have anything to do specifically with healthcare. But when people come, they're running for office, they run on ideas and they say, well, we're going to do this and this and this and this without actual plans. And then once they're elected, now we got to do it. And I'm sorry, but the left has a real problem. They can't work on just simple, clean ideas by themselves. They've always got to pack stuff full of pork. They've always got to, pull in some sort of corruption. You had the insurance companies who were really threatened. If Obamacare had worked, they really would have been threatening to put private insurance companies out of business. What do? They go and make friends with big insurance. And so all of a sudden, now you've got everybody twice as corrupt as what it was before, all working under kind of false pretenses that this can be done on next to nothing in terms of cost. And at the end of the day, who's getting pinched and pushed and, scrubbed down to the very last nickel? The American consumer, the American patient.
That's absolutely right. And, I do think that President Trump, if you pare it down to very basic things, he is focused in healthcare on transparency. So transparency from hospitals, transparency from insurance companies. Before we look at the great healthcare plan and think about this, for drug prices, for years, Americans were being charged more until he said, you have to get something done about this. Within a few months, he got the pharmaceutical companies admitting, yeah, we were charging more just because we knew you could pay. And he said, stop it. And they did.
Yeah.
He's not trying to boil the ocean with this, but he's taking very important, very deliberate and targeted steps. But the theme really to me is transparency, and whether that's an information or whether that's having Bobby Kennedy with a nutrition plan that's about whole foods and getting rid of chemicals. It's a very clean agenda.
I want to get back to, we'll get to Trump's accomplishments and the transparency issue in a bit. I want to stay on Obamacare for a second, because I think that a lot of people hearing us, especially if you live in a big blue city, Chicago, New York, Detroit, DC, places where this bill really carried weight, I would say, with the electorate. I still don't think they understand. A lot of people don't understand what went wrong, how it got changed, what they did differently than what they campaigned on in terms of how they processed it. Can you walk us through, not the minute detail, but in general, the concepts and kind of why they fell apart once the free market had a shot at it?
So I think some of it is specific pieces of the law. They said, we're going to get rid of risk pooling, like the way that you traditionally look at insurance. But you know what? Here's the problem. If you squeeze one side of a balloon, it just pops out on the other.
Right.
So they said, we have to offer insurance to everybody. We're not even going to look at risk. And people think, well, that's great. But there's a trade-off for that.
And they have to say they can't look at risk because they're running around campaigning on, we're going to make sure everybody gets covered. So while it wasn't like a universal plan per se to give universal health care to everybody, it in essence was a huge, ginormous step in that direction, but without the hardcore backing of a tax plan to go with it.
Exactly. And so their success actually was not in expanding care in the private market. They gained almost all of their gains are in expanding Medicaid. An extra 20 million people, most of whom are healthy, able-bodied, wouldn't have been eligible in the past. Medicaid has a role. I grew up poor. I was on Medicaid when I was a kid. Being poor when you're a kid means you work really hard to not be poor when you're an adult.
Right.
That is the greatness of this country, is that you have that opportunity. They expanded to Medicaid to healthy people overwhelmingly. That is the success of the ACA, is a bunch of healthy people now are on insurance through Medicaid, the government plan. In terms of the private sector, what it did, incredibly narrow networks. If you, God forbid, got cancer and you were on Obamacare, there weren't any cancer networks that were going to be in your network. You weren't going to have access. They've been getting called out on this more recently. But the reality is their success, which was the plan all along, was to try to expand government health care, to put the camel's nose under the tent. The expansion of Medicaid really was the first piece. And that is why they keep pushing for this. They want a government plan because government's so great at running things.
Right. So, well, they ran into a number of buzzsaws. The first one of which was that the mandate was just patently non-constitutional. So you can't make people buy things that they don't want to buy. I don't have to buy car insurance if I don't want to own a car. I shouldn't be forced to pay for pregnancy as a male, which my Obamacare plan, had I had one, would have required coverage for. And it doesn't make any sense. It's those types of non sequiturs that people think, well, this is some of the weirdest stuff I've ever seen. And to know that they were doing it with our tax dollars.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
What are the children eating today?
Solo tomates con tortilla.
Only tomatoes with tortilla.
Are they still hungry?
Ahorita dice que no porque se calma ahorita.
Right now, they are hungry. They want food, and we don't have money enough to get to the whole week.
How does it make her feel when she can't feed her children?
Pues me siento muy triste.
It made me feel sad. Sometimes I get in my room by myself and I cry. I wonder how can I make their life better and have more money in order to give them food. I don't want my sons and my daughters to suffer.
Another real life story of a mom who faces that kind of, I don't know, Paul Jacobs, I consider it kind of a form of anxiety and torture. Like if you're a parent, the thing that keeps you up at night is what is good for my kids? What do I need to do to make sure my children are okay? And that story by a woman named Myrna Yolanda is one of those where you could put yourself in her shoes. Any mom listening right now could see themselves in that same situation and imagine the angst, the anger, the doubt, the wonder. Will I be able to help my children this week? She said, I don't have enough money for this week. That's just got to be something that is so overwhelming. And yet Food for the Poor is an answer to so many prayers like that.
Mothers like my own, going through hard times. It's one thing for them to go through, and a mother will take on this, bear this weight, this pain, whatever it may be. But when it involves their children, there is a desperation and a fear and an anxiety that strikes a mother's heart like something we can't even understand. Myrna is no different. When we visited her home, what was striking to her, she put on a very good face. And her children, her small children, there were 3 children there. Her husband was out to work. He works 7 days a week, barely earns $2 a day. What was really touching her and what caused her the greatest anxiety was when her 6-year-old boy tugs on her and says, "Mommy, can I go to work with Daddy so that my little baby sister doesn't cry because she's hungry?" 6 years old. And this is why she says that I get fear because, and I can't do anything. I can't show that fear to my children. So I find myself away and I cry in the corner of our room. These mothers, like you listening right now, like you watching us right now, you have experienced pain in your own right, or maybe you've seen your parents struggle, and you can identify and understand a mom who cannot feed her children. That particular trip, when we visited Myrna Yolanda after that interview, she took us across this little dirt path where she has this other shack where she keeps this barrel. Think of like your garbage can you take out to the street every Tuesday or every Saturday, and it was a barrel of water. This is where her water was, and she says, "This is what I have to clean, to bathe my children, and to drink." And when I looked inside and I took this little cup and I cupped this water, I saw literally bugs and sediment. You could see every bit of sediment inside this water, and she can't boil it enough to make it clean. And this is what the plight of mothers like Myrna Yolanda that is going through right now, why you're so vitally important. I want to say a special thank you because we've had some, I don't know if they're moms or not, but they are definitely coming to the rescue of moms like Myrna Yolanda. Jennifer from Sandy, Oregon. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer's giving for the very first time to Food for the Poor. Thank you,
Jennifer. Welcome.
Betty Joe from League City, Texas. Thank you, Betty Joe. Also,
Texas in the house today. We've seen several.
That's exactly right. We've had Kathy from Lansing, Michigan. Thank you, Kathy. God bless you. And Jacqueline from Brooklyn, New York.
Hey, hometown girl.
Thank you, Jacqueline. All of these ladies giving at the call center, calling that toll-free number 855-907-4673, making their best gift and saving lives, but also helping just take a little bit of that pressure off moms like Myrna Yolanda.
Well, I want to give you another reason why right this minute is important. We have been notified that for the next 10 minutes, every single gift that comes in will be matched. We've got a food and a water match on for every child we can take care of in this next 10 minutes. So I need you to go to the phone and do the best you can. 855-907-4673. And by that, I mean, if you're a small business owner and you know that your company's going to have a big, tax rebate coming because, the big, beautiful bill's in or whatever, take advantage of making a difference for eternity and give your best gift. If you can give $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, that multiplies by double right now in terms of the number of children that we can help. And friends, if you can't do that, if you can do $75, you're going to go from helping one child to two children, $150 from two children to four children, $300 from four children to eight children, whatever God impresses upon you. This is the opportunity to maximize.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next. That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Times Square. Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related. You can get the column, the TV show, and you can also get your watch kit for the upcoming Holy Week so that you can both yourself watch this film and then also invite others to watch it with you, called Heaven, How I Got Here, The Story of the Thief on the Cross, presented by Open the Bible, a group that I fell in love with, 12 years ago because we were starting down this journey together, and John Aiello is back with us. And John, you've been checking in with us weekly. We're trying to attempt something here that we've never done before, which is just to tell a lot more people about the gospel than we've ever told before. And somebody asked me the other day, Kev, what's your real desire with all of this? And I'm like, there's such a burning in my heart for everyone that's listening to invite at least one person to view the film this year. Just find one person to watch it with and to have a conversation with, because I think at the end of the day, when the world kind of opens its heart and mind and kind of looks into the Christian story in a way it doesn't the rest of the year, this is an opportunity that I really feel like God can use to bring people to himself. And I know that that's what's on your heart as well.
Very much so, Kevin. I mean, the heart of our ministry, we have a simple way of stating our mission. We want to build a movement of people who love to open the Bible themselves and who are equipped to open the Bible with others. Opening the Bible with others can be scary, right? I mean, you thump a big book on the table and where do you begin? And gosh, I don't feel like I'm ready. And that's kind of intimidating to me, let alone sharing it with somebody. So stories from the Bible, biblical stories, scriptural stories are where it's at. Talking about something that you've read and what it meant to you, or allowing someone to read it or to see it or to show it is really what we're in the business of doing here at Open the Bible, giving tools that help equip believers to share the gospel with others. I don't know everyone's story out there, of course, but all of our stories of coming to faith at some point, it involved some type of invitation. It might have been somebody just sharing their own journey. It might have been read this, talk here, come to church with me, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And you know what? As believers, we are called to invite others. And yet it's hard. And so this project, the Heaven, How I Got Here project is all about taking a story from Scripture, the story of the thief, and allowing and creating tools that believers can invite other people to. And this Stephen Baldwin performance is about as good as it gets. I don't think we've done anything better to this point.
Well, and I will say, just getting that performance out of him, as someone who was his business partner and very close ally at the time, was an adventure and a little bit of a spiritual battle in and of itself. But yet what comes out on screen is so raw and so real and so, I think, consistent with the biblical ethos of what this story consists of. For people that are just joining us, this whole project came about because Pastor Colin Smith from the Orchard in the Chicago area preached a sermon, breakfast with the devil, supper with the Savior, or something like that. And it was this character, this thief on the cross character, fairly ubiquitous, kind of universally known. You hear the phrase thief on the cross. Everybody knows what you're talking about. And yet, John, as we've recounted on these visits, the guy couldn't have been less qualified. If heaven is something that you qualify for, no one was less qualified than a guy who was being put to death for his evil next to Jesus. And yet he becomes the first person for Jesus to welcome to heaven following his death. That in and of itself is an amazing thought.
Kevin, there's somebody listening or watching as we speak who's thinking, yeah, but what I've done is too much, or have somebody in their life who's telling them that, what I've done is just too much, can't be forgiven, or God doesn't want anything to do with somebody like me. And to be honest, this guy was not just, he didn't steal a Tootsie Roll down at the convenience store. You got crucified because you were a violent criminal, likely a murderer. And so about as sinful as you can get. And yet, he simply looked at Jesus, acknowledged him as king, confessed that he feared God and wanted to be remembered by Jesus. And Jesus looked at him, bloodied, beaten, bruised. Our Savior looked at this man and said, today you will be with me in paradise. Not unclear, not uncertain. And so if there's ever a story to share with somebody in your life, this is the story. And I will just tell you, Kevin, we've been working this project in many different formats for years and years. Praise the Lord. And you were there at the onset with us, and so I'm always grateful for our partnership. We've heard stories from all over the world. I'll share just a couple of vignettes. Somebody might be listening and go, oh, well, I could do that.
Yeah.
We heard from a radio listener because we had a radio drama that you also helped us produce, Kevin, and it's sort of the tandem partner product to the movie that we're talking about today. But we had a radio listener in Cleveland who just heard it was going to be airing and knocked on their neighbor's door, and neighbor didn't answer, but came out in the backyard and over a fence said, hey, would you commit to listening to this thing this Holy Week? It was on Good Friday that it was airing. And this person did. This person said, you know what? I can listen to that. I don't need you in my ear. Maybe I don't need to open the Bible just yet. I'm not ready for that, but I can listen to this. And not only is the performance visually in the film compelling, but the audio performance Stephen gives is also striking. And a couple of days later, the neighbor who'd invited this gentleman to come out peers over the fence again and says, hey, did you listen? And this person comes over and recited the story of the thief on the cross almost verbatim, had gone back to scripture and read out of the book of Luke, chapter 23, what exactly this thief had said to Jesus and exactly how Jesus responded. And of course, like any good Christian would, this woman leaned over to her neighbor who had just heard this for the first time and said, how did you react? What did you think? And he said, I put my faith in Jesus just yesterday.
Wow.
Thinking to myself, what did this woman do? She was moved by the Holy Spirit. She listened to the Holy Spirit. This guy came to her heart. This guy was my neighbor, they were quite different in age. The neighbor was about 30. This woman was in her 60s, and said, would you just listen to this? And he did. Thankfully, he did. And that's what happened. It wasn't her saving him. It wasn't her great work that saved him. It was her invitation that made him aware of a scriptural story that ultimately the Holy Spirit worked through to convict his heart. I'll give you another one. Retired cop shared the gospel with his brother on his deathbed, who came to faith. And this retired cop, having witnessed the transformational nature of the thief on the cross story in someone's last moments on earth, decided at his brother's wake, he was going to make copies of this book, the book that all this was born out of as well, available to everybody who attended. Over 700 books were given out during that wake and visitation in this man's life. And this man has heard a number of stories of people coming to faith.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
The new Ayatollah is gay, and President Trump has reportedly taken advantage of this weakness by luring the Ayatollah out of hiding using a cardboard cutout of David Hasselhoff. Hubba hubba. The mission was codenamed Operation Hot Hoff, and it went off without a hitch. Military operatives placed the cardboard cutout on the outskirts of Tehran, And sure enough, within minutes, the Ayatollah came out of his bunker and attempted to smooch the likeness of Hasselhoff. But the only kiss the Ayatollah would be receiving was from the 30mm Avenger cannon of an A-10 Warhawk. Ay caramba. No one can resist the Hoff, Trump said. Muscles, tremendous hair, and that cool car that talks to you. The gays are powerless against the Hoff.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Votes
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead on this edition, Dr. Monique Yohanon, Obamacare turned 16. Paul Jacobs feeding the poor. John Aiello celebrating Holy Week. Patrice Onwuka with Equal Pay Day. And Billy Holloway asks about angels and demons. Sketch comedy from Puppet Regime, Babylon B, and Nick Peterson. And Elevation Worship is in the spotlight. And now from Times Square, where the pizza rats care more about saving democracy than the United States Senate, here's Kevin!
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. Washington celebrating what it does best this weekend, almost fixing a problem it created. A so-called breakthrough on the DHS shutdown arrives just in time, and at only minor cost to Republicans or taxpayers and basic logic. Lawmakers say the deal avoids catastrophe, which in Washington speak means they postponed it until sometime next Thursday. Meanwhile, the State Department has released its updated list of the world's most dangerous countries for Americans. Topping the list, places with unstable governments, civil unrest, and apparently several U.S. cities. Officials say if you hear shouting, see flashing lights, or someone live streaming your car being flipped after dark, remain calm. You're either abroad or in downtown Chicago. Speaking of chaos, teen moms have been swarming city centers across the country, turning sidewalks into audition reels for Fast and Furious curfew drift. Local leaders say they're cracking down hard with sternly worded tweets and a curfew that begins precisely after everyone has already left. In New Jersey, a middle school teacher is facing serious charges involving a student, another horrifying reminder that people entrusted to educate our kids sometimes need a lesson in basic humanity. Authorities say the case is ongoing and parents everywhere are updating their definition of parent-teacher conference. Over in sports, former Eagles tight end Brent Selleck's ex-wife is now reportedly dating another former Eagles player. Because nothing says team loyalty like rotating through the roster. Insiders say the Eagles are considering adding her to the depth chart. Indiana coach Curt Cignetti is laying down the law with his players, sending a strong pre-practice message about dress code. Yeah, in a world unraveling at the seams, at least someone is demanding tucked-in shirts and accountability. Honestly, he may be overqualified for basketball. Has anyone offered him a cabinet position? Out west, Washington state Democrats have passed an income tax they fully admit is unconstitutional, but they say it's worth it because nothing says rule of law like fingers crossed. Legal scholars say the strategy is bold, innovative, and usually reserved for teenagers explaining why they borrowed the car. On the public health front, another state has moved to ban so-called gas station heroin, those synthetic supplements that promise energy but deliver regret. Officials say the products are dangerous, addictive, and disturbingly still less harmful than reading the comment sections on social media. And finally, a North Carolina woman who vanished 24 years ago has been reunited with her daughter in an emotional courtroom moment, proving that even in a world of political chaos, viral mobs and halftime relationship drama, real miracles still happen. And sometimes they don't even require a government program to pull them off. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Hey, I'm Brett. He, him.
Hola.
Hola? Yeah, that's cultural appropriation. That ain't it, Chief.
Really? Isn't Chief cultural appropriation too? And secondly, I'm from Cuba.
That's awesome. I love your sandwiches. You know, it is pretty sad that those Cubans don't really appreciate the great social programs they've got. Am I right, Chief? I mean, person, Cuba person.
Great social programs? What are you talking about?
Well, you know, like take healthcare, for instance.
Yes, we had healthcare, but it mostly consists of us rubbing dirt in our wounds. But my grandmother was able to build this pretty cool wheelchair out of an old washing machine.
You must be mistaken. I learned all about Cuba's excellent social programs in college.
Is that right? How long have you been in college?
Half a semester. So yeah, I'm pretty much an expert on socialism. In fact, I'm inviting people to the meeting my group is having. Socialists undermining capitalist knowledge.
Ay, ay, ay. Tell me what else you've learned in college about my country, Mr. Expert.
Bernie Sanders taught me that Cuba has great literacy programs.
Yeah, we used to have to write, "I will obey Fidel Castro," 100 times every morning.
Also, Bernie taught me that the poor rose up and they stole the means of production from the ugly rich people. That sounds amazing.
We didn't own anything with regards to production. But what we did have, we had a 20-year-old anemic donkey named Gus. I do miss Gus, but he was delicious.
Okay, by the way, how did you end up in this dystopian capitalist country anyway? We've got it really rough here.
Hey, did you order the orange mocha frappuccino?
Oh yeah, that's me.
Okay.
I hate when they look at you like they expect a tip. Anyway, yeah, how did you end up in this terrible place?
We escaped on a raft made out of a mattress and inflated surgical glove.
You mean to tell me that you came to America on purpose?
No, not on a porpoise, on a raft.
I don't understand how somebody could flee Cuban paradise and come to this oppressive, totalitarian hellscape.
I can tell you, we didn't have any of those in Cuba. That I can guarantee you.
What, you mean that in Cuba you guys only have like iPhone 12s? No, don't tell me. iPhone 11s? No, that can't be right.
You young people don't have any idea what socialism is like.
My ride's here. Yeah, Mom. Yes, I'll be there in a second. Gosh, I'm gonna be late to the Antifa protest. So, do you want to learn more about why North Korea isn't real socialism?
Yeah, my parents escaped North Korea after digging a 30-foot tunnel through frozen dirt with a pair of chopsticks, so...
It was the temple that was the scene of my very first theft. I did it and it felt good. When a thief gets sloppy, a thief gets caught. I was one of the guilty ones who hung near Jesus as he suffered and died on the cross. This is the day that I'm going to die. I will die in defiance. The Romans can break my body, but they will never break my spirit. It will be a day of excruciating pain. Jesus was painfully abused, but he did not complain. He was silent, like a lamb being led to a slaughter. I heard Jesus speak, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Forgive them? I wanted to kill them. Jesus, in this moment, is taking on the sins of every person who will simply just put their trust in him. This is why he was pierced. This is why he was crushed. It was for me. If Jesus could forgive his torturer as well, maybe he could forgive me.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. ThatKevinShow.com. Glad to have you with us. Everything is there. Nothing's behind a paywall. We want you to have access to all the information, all the good guests and interviews and columns and TV shows and everything else. We want you to take advantage of it. That's why we offer it for free. Also, want to remind you that next week, being Holy Week, it's still not too late to request your free watch kit for Heaven, How I Got Here, the story of the thief on the cross. Just go to thatkevinshow.com/heaven. Request the kit and we'll send it to you. We'll send you the trailer, the film, and some study questions for people to discuss the story of the thief on the cross. And we would love for you to do that. Entertain some folks this Easter season and talk about the real meaning of everything. Speaking of real meaning of things, what does equal pay actually mean? Same pay for same work? Maybe the same experience should be required. Maybe longer people with more experience get paid more, or maybe those who don't do it as long get paid less. But what if your expertise is higher? These are all things that are generated around this discussion of the pay gap. And today, well, this week, Equal Pay Day was observed. And here to discuss is Patrice Onwuka, Vice President of Economic Policy at the Independent Women's Forum. We love those gals. Patrice, it's good to see you. The pay gap, it's a myth. There's no pay gap, right?
Yeah, it's a myth. And actually, at Town Hall today, I have an op-ed saying the Equal Pay Day hoax is finally dead, because people have come to realize that this idea that there is rampant gender or sex-based discrimination, as evidenced by the difference between men and women's earnings on average, or overall, it's false, it's misleading, and it's disingenuous. But it's really just a way for feminists and leftists to exploit people's emotions, particularly women's emotions, to drive forward policies that will not help them. And
well, I think that they got away with it for a long time because people didn't know the facts.
Yes.
But when you have people like AOC and Ilhan Omar being like you're now, symbols for the movement, I think just a lot of people get very irritated because there's just a lot of things that AOC never has encountered, never will have to deal with, that a lot of other women have. She's not a mom. She's not gone through the tough choice of giving up a career, even for 9 months, to go through pregnancy and give birth. And it all delves into, it all kind of springs from, rather, this idea that we're supposed to think that men and women are not different in any way, that we weren't made for distinct purposes, or that there's any, anything special about being a man or a woman. And in reality, they've tried to apply this argument to the workplace in such a way that is really dishonest. And if a guy is at the job, I'm just talking about your entry level, widget making factory job, and you're on the line for 25 years and you, for the most part, never miss a day, and you're there, someone who comes in for 5 and then takes time off and comes back for another 3 or 4, your pay level shouldn't be the same. Not if you're doing the same work for the same, company and doing it to the same quality of each other.
Well, that gets into the different factors that explain the earnings between men and women. When you just do a look at the raw data, you see that there's a 19-cent gap, and that's really, not changed over decades because there are other factors that go into men and women's pay. And you hit on the biggest one, which is hours. Women tend to work fewer full-time jobs. They're more likely to work part-time.
Fewer full-time jobs outside the house, young lady.
Outside of the house, yes.
Because everything you do in the house, that is a full-time job.
It is a full-time job, 24/7. But outside of the home, they're not working full-time jobs. They tend to work part-time jobs. When you look at where women are concentrated in the industries and occupations, you see that women are drawn to occupations that are around education, helping, leisure, and entertainment. I mentioned education. Even in health services, women tend to be clustered in kind of the support roles and the administrative roles, not necessarily the higher paying roles. We shouldn't assign a value to that. What we should allow is for women to assign the value. And if you are a woman who wants to help your community and you love caregiving, that may be an industry that you should absolutely go into, but you recognize that the pay is not going to be the same as a woman who goes into engineering or a man who goes into, deep water wells exploration.
Right.
Dangerousness, Kevin. Do you know that over 90% of workplace fatalities are borne by men? Very few women die in workplace fatalities because they're not working the most dangerous jobs. But those jobs also carry the highest or higher pay than other jobs. And so when you factor all these things together, the pay gap pretty much evaporates. It disappears into thin air pretty much.
So what should the approach be to employment? Are there still things that we need to strengthen? Are there ways that women are being discriminated against? And what are the best things we can do to just kind of assert that America is still the fairest place to work, get a job, keep a job, get paid for your job than any place else on the planet?
Well, we want to recognize that sex-based discrimination does happen. And women already, it is, number one, it's illegal. We have laws, civil rights laws on the books that make it illegal if you feel like you've been discriminated based on sex. And you can file a lawsuit against the employer to do so. Exactly. There's legal recourse. But we also need to recognize as a society that a good job is not a 9-to-5 job. A good job is not a job behind a desk. A good job can be 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then, middle of the day for some hours, and then weekends, working weekends. Independent contracting, self-employment, even gig work. Those are the types of opportunities that women are able to craft that bespoke career that really meets their needs, whether they're raising kids or taking care of an aging parent. And that's why I'm really pleased to see the Trump administration reintroduce a rule very recently that would protect independent contracting. We saw the Biden administration,
you want to talk about something that hurt women, working women, especially working moms. The whole punishment against gig work was insane. And the thing was, nobody in Congress that was female, that was from the left perspective, stood up and defended it. And that's where you'd think even AOC, as a former bartender, would say, well, wait a minute, I needed that type of work for that period of my life, and I lived off tips. If she actually did. Maybe she didn't. Maybe it was just all a story. I don't know. But you would think that someone with that background would have been the first one screaming about that, and not a word from any of them.
Well, it's because they are supported by unions, and labor unions do not like the idea of independent work. They want gig workers. They want freelancers. They want people who are self-employed, all to be forced to be hired by someone as a traditional employee, because then they're unionizable. As an independent contractor, as a freelancer, as a gig worker, you cannot be unionized. And so there's more of a political play, which is why you don't see women on the left coming out in support. We see a lot of Republican women absolutely supporting workplace flexibility, supporting gig work, and some of the Modern Worker Empowerment Act, which would actually codify a very good standard to protect independent contracting. So there's work to be done. There's work getting done. And at Independent Women, Kevin, we are giving women the space to say, hey, I want this type of policy implemented.
Excellent. Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related. We don't ever put it behind a paywall. You can even get the new merch, the That Kevin Show mugs, all that stuff. It's all good. But check that out. And everything's there. The column, the TV show, the podcasts. Grateful to have you with us. There is probably not nearly enough written about the next topic that we are going to discuss. Although there was a season, at least in my memory, in my early 30s, where the idea of spiritual warfare became a big topic. This Present Darkness was a novel that kind of kicked off people's imagination to think about it. Michael W. Smith wrote a couple of songs about it on the Secret Ambition album. And there were lots of different theological kind of takes that were published throughout mostly Christian publishing at the time about it. But for the last 15 years or so, it's gone kind of quiet until now. There's a documentary that I want to tell you about, and the producer, director of that documentary, Billy Holloway, is joining us. He is part of the great contingency at CBN and doing the work there. Billy, it's good to see you. We've known each other for 150 years, and we're finally getting together here. Why were you fascinated enough in this subject matter that you wanted to go tell these stories?
Yeah, this has been a topic, there's certain topics sometimes that, God kind of puts in your path and you want to run away from them. And for a long time, this was one of those subjects, demons in particular. But it was something that kept coming up. It kept coming up when I was working at The Blaze, more than a decade ago. I was covering faith content. I was the faith editor there. And we would often get these, real life possession stories, and people would come to us and they were credible. I mean, there were a lot of very credible stories where I would say, look, I've been a Christian my whole life. I believe these things in my mind, but then you're confronted with it and you're sort of like, okay, is this really real? And so I started on a journey back about 10 years ago, starting to look at these topics. And, I wrote a book in 2020 called Playing with Fire, where I was dealing specifically with what do Christians believe about evil and the demonic. And so that was an interesting experience for me. And then moving forward, when I got to CBN and came back in 2021 to the organization, Christian Broadcasting Network Films, CBN Films, Jared Anderson, our director and one of the producers and the screenwriter on these projects, we started talking, and he really crafted this whole idea of, hey, we're not talking about the supernatural enough. What if we did a TV show on miracles, angels and demons, heaven and hell, and we did a 3-part, 30-minute series? And so he asked me to host it and produce it. I jumped on board. We went out and started filming it because we felt it was important that the church was not talking about these issues enough, and that culture was talking about them more than some churches were. Yeah. And as soon as we started filming,
never in a helpful or biblical sense.
Exactly. Yep. Never in a every Halloween, those movies come out and they're never really coming from a biblical perspective. And we've allowed that, though. A lot of Christians have allowed the secular world to take a church topic and talk about it more than the church is, right? So as soon as we started filming, it became apparent immediately, these are not TV shows. This is not a TV series. These are movies, each individual topic. And so we shifted very quickly, and this is our second film in the series.
Yeah. And we didn't have you on for the first one, so apologies for that, but we're glad to discuss this. So the concept of the film is you just talk to people that have had experiences, and they tell you their story. Now, I know that there are cynics listening, watching, saying, okay, Billy said that they were credible. What kind of credibility test was applied to more or less ensure that your claim is true?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that question because I think at the end of the day, the last thing I want to do as somebody who's a journalist and I love to investigate these things is to give people information that's not true. Right. And so we spent a long time vetting stories, both on angels and demons, right? We wanted to look at both. And I will tell you, I'm a natural, even though I'm a Christian, I'm a natural skeptic. If you tell me you've had some demonic experience, my first reaction is prove it to me. Give me the evidence. Tell me something that will show me that what you're telling me is true. And so we were able to really dig into medical records. You know, if you're talking about a situation where somebody has had a near-death experience, for instance, or they've had some element where they've encountered these things that we can verify, we went to every length we could to find that verification. You can verify through other people, through other witnesses, right? So we went out really, by the time we went out to film these interviews, we had a very good idea of what we were dealing with. And so we knew they were very credible stories. But even then you walk in and you're like, okay, you're telling me you had a near-death experience, you saw angels, and you had a miracle healing. Prove that to me. And so our goal was to provide the information, and not just the information, but also reenactments. We spent a lot of time and money on reenactments to show people what happened. What did it look like? Because storytelling often requires that. Yeah. And so there are multiple layers of this, but we felt very confident walking away from every story that we had done our due diligence to, offer scientific information.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. We haven't talked about this topic ever since we've been doing this version of the show, and that points to a little bit of what I was just saying in the last segment. That this is a subject matter that has gone on some level quite quiet in Christian circles, whereas 30 years ago, Frank Peretti's This Present Darkness. Lots of theological books written about whether or not spiritual warfare was real, angels, demons, all the rest of this. As our guest said in the last segment, it's kind of been turned over to the Tom Hankses of the world, and that's a really bad place for it to all end up being. So, Billy, we're grateful. The film is called Investigating the Supernatural, Angels and Demons. It's the second of a 3-part series. And we're talking about real life of day-to-day folks that experienced this stuff. What was the, let me get an answer to the question that we went to break on. Why do you think there's such pushback still in Christendom as to whether or not these things actually do occur?
Yeah, I think there are so many layers to this. On one hand, you have the secular culture pushing in to the church, right? And so you have this fear of looking weird or seeming strange. And so, I went my whole life to church, and every pastor would say they believe in the devil, they believe in evil, they believe in demons, they believe in angels, but nobody ever preached or talked about it. Mm-hmm. And what's so fascinating to me is Ephesians 6 is so clear. We are living in a spiritual battle, that you have to fight the battle by being a Christian, by reading your Bible, by living right, but you have to take up the shield of faith. That's what that means. And yet we have a church that is not equipping people to recognize that they're in a battle. You cannot win a battle you don't know you're in. And so that has been something for me that is so convicting, because these churches, the ones who don't talk about this, these pastors, they're putting people at such a disadvantage. But I think it's the fear of looking weird. I think it's also because of the material nature of the West, we are not thinking about spiritual things. We talk about them sometimes, but we don't want to acknowledge that this is very real. You go other places, look, they're dealing with this stuff and they're talking about it and they're seeing miracles happen at a rate that's way higher than we are. And so we've become apathetic, we've become lazy, and I think we've abdicated our responsibility. But here's you cover the news every day. You can't make sense of what is happening in the world if you don't understand evil and Ephesians 6 and how evil and good are fighting a battle that is pouring over into the world around us, and it affects everything from our lives onward. And so I do think it's a little bit of laziness and fear. But by the way, 81% of the country, if not more, believes there's something spiritual beyond the material.
That's the stat that gets me, because we have this weird uncertainty, fear that is in the back of our heads. And yet we all cop to saying, oh yeah, absolutely, I believe that stuff happens. And the problem that I have with that, Billy, is that if the church leaves a vacuum, then other forces will always fill it. And if the church isn't helping us understand what's happening in this arena, you're going to have the Spielbergs and Hankses and other people of the world come in with their ideas of what it looks like, and it's not going to be biblical, and it's not going to be based on what God has to say about it, which is ultimately what we need to understand and kind of react to. So I think that what you're doing here is really, really vital. I want to stay on the use of on the issue rather of evil for a second. I don't think that you can look at 9/11, October 7th, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which this show airs in a lot of the stations where his show previously was at. I don't think you can look at these types of things and say that evil doesn't exist. So what's the disconnect for us and the world? How come it's still an argument as to whether or not sin exists, evil exists, and the people of God having something different? Because we say every day on this show, we have a responsibility to get back to the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? How do I live? And if I'm living in this culture, it's a culture where they pretty much hate God. And they may be okay with like a generic form of God, but the God that's associated with the Bible is really the problem. And if we say that we are, into that, they look at us as though we're like, stupid step cousins that they can't stand to be around. So how do we live in the midst of that? Our job is to not change mission, change course. But this is one of those, I feel like, areas where, engagement sometimes can be latched onto or completely shunned based on how the handling of this discussion of evil goes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, look, people don't want to be accountable, right, for their actions. They don't want to be accountable to sin. So it's easy to try to, come up with some other spiritual formation that doesn't require that, which is why, Christianity requires that we die to ourselves, that we realize that our desires may not align with what God wants. And so the secular culture is going to reject that. What is sad is when the church culture isn't equipping the people of the church. I mean, look, the stats on biblical worldview are horrific. It's like 4% of Americans have a biblical worldview. And so that's because we've abdicated our responsibility. We don't want to talk about evil because it's more unpleasant. When you look at the polling data, it's interesting. People are more likely to believe in heaven and God than they are Satan and hell. Well, why is that? Again, you have to think, well, I might be condemned for my actions. If I don't accept Jesus, what does that mean for me? And so people don't want to think about those things. But this proper understanding of evil, it points us back to God, actually. When we fully understand it, we know what the solution is. We know that Jesus wins this battle. The battle, though, is not over. We are very much in it. And I think too many of us are reading the Bible as though it's a book that already happened, that everything in it already happened, and we're sort of reading this history. And there is a lot of history, and there are a lot of things that already happened, but they're intricately tied to what has not yet happened. And the Bible talks about a lot of prophecy, right, that has not happened. And so we are very much in it. And so when Paul talks about this spiritual battle that we're in Ephesians 6, it is an active, just when he wrote it, it was just as active as it is today. And so I think people they struggle with anything that feels supernatural, yet they fail to realize that our whole existence is supernatural, God's creation, right? I mean, you and I sitting here talking the way we are right now, this is supernatural. It's incredible.
The first breath we took was breathed by God into us. So it's like, it doesn't get more supernatural than that. Okay, Billy, let's tell people where they can see the film and what's your ultimate goal for everybody watching or listening today? I mean, how do we get people engaged?
Yeah, so the film can be watched. It can be streamed right now, cbn.com/supernatural. That's where you go for it. The goal for this film is to get people thinking. There are too many people walking around. I don't care. Look, if you're an atheist, an agnostic, or a Christian, this is a film for you. I think there's something for everybody here. For Christians, my hope is that this will get us thinking more about the faith we claim to believe in. Do we understand every part of it? Are we open to the fact that God is still moving, that these things are still going on?
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.